I was in a higher-end department store today, rhymes with loomingtales, and happened to end up next to two teenage-age girls while shopping. One of the girls had picked out a pair of very expensive boots, and they were both fawning over them. Second girl must have looked at price tag and asks Boots girl if she's really gonna spend that much on boots. Girl with boots says something along the lines of "It's fine, I have my dad's credit card, I'm not paying," which instantly caught my attention because that's not her card. I've told my son multiple times he's never allowed to use my card, so I'm interested to see how this girl thinks she's going to get away with fraud, but had split up from the girls at this point because they had found something else. We end up at the same register, me behind, and I see her total hit well over 4 digits. The girl is about to swipe her card when I decide that I can't let her get away with something like this, and someone has to parent this kid if no one else will. I tell cashier that isn't her card but her father's, and I'm not sure she has permission. Girl and friend turn and glare at me, giving me possibly the dirtiest look I've ever seen. I swear this girl was going to throw a tantrum right there. I don't think she was ever told no. Girl tells cashier her father gave her the card to shop with because it's the store's credit card and it gives him the points. Now that I've pointed out it wasn't hers, cashier tells her she can't use that card. Girl tries to show ID to prove they have the same last name, yeah that will help, and I tell her it's still fraud. Girl says it's not fraud because she has permission and tells me to mind my own business. I tell her that it is my business, that she's doing something illegal, she needs to pay with her own card or I call the cops. Girl is pissed now and people are glaring at me. She uses her own card and leaves crying. Cashier looks mad at me and I tell my husband when I get home, only for him to agree I was in the wrong. So, am I the idiot? You're the idiot. I understand where you're coming from, but it's a mind your own business kind of situation. The father let her have the card, you don't even know if she's allowed to use it or not. If she isn't allowed to, he can deal with the situation as it is his child. It's not like she said she found the card on the street and is racking up charges everywhere. Plus you're making everyone's lives harder by being an idiot. Calling the cops for a daughter using her father's card. You need to chill out. You're the idiot. How do you know her father didn't give her permission to use the card? Mine used to give me his credit card or checkbook all the time when I was younger, and while it wasn't given to me for 4-digit shopping trips, it was given to me for household groceries, school supplies, school clothing with a budget on how much I could spend. You don't know what kind of permission she had. And her dad would soon find out anyways when he gets the statement. Your husband is right, you need to keep your nose out of other people's business. You are the idiot for getting involved in something that doesn't concern you. Hopefully, the dad would have punished the daughter for abusing the credit card, but we will never know, and it doesn't matter, because it's none of our business. But for all we know, he could have told her to use it. We just don't know. You take issue with your kids using your credit card without permission, but there's a chance other parents don't care or have different credit card rules. So about a year ago, I made the decision to change my name. I ran this by pretty much no one and only my close friends, employers, and coworkers were even informed afterward. I decided to not tell my parents for multiple reasons. My parents were stereotypical hippies. When I was born they gave me a very unique name. Despite being a male, the name they gave me, despite being neutral, was feminine and was spelled in a very odd fashion. Think along the lines of Bailey or Dakota. Growing up I was bullied relentlessly because of this. It destroyed my self-esteem growing up, and I've hated my name since forever. My parents have just seemed to ignore this and told me that it didn't matter and my name reflected how special I was. Going into college I abandoned the name immediately. My college allowed for us to have a preferred name that professors would see. So I began going by a much more masculine name and I noticed a difference. People didn't immediately ask about my name and it was never a problem. Even when close friends learned my real name they said my preferred name did much better. So after 4 years of college and 2 of working, I changed it legally last year. I never told my parents because I knew they would be mad. As a teen I asked constantly and they always got mad and felt insulted that I would abandon the first thing they gave me. So I went a year not telling them. But last week they figured out when my sister accidentally told them. Since then they have been going insane. They have called me every day asking how I could do that to them. How I could abandon the name they gave me or how I'm inconsiderate of them and their feelings. My grandmother also called me today saying I'm an idiot for changing my name without asking my parents. She says my parents should have had a say in my new name, as they are outwardly trashing my new one to everyone. I don't see how it's anyone's freaking business what I call myself and why my parents have any say here now that I'm an adult. I hated my old name and they knew but did nothing when I was bullied over it. Am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. I spent months with my husband researching names for our then unborn child. We finally settled on a name that didn't rhyme easily with anything negative, was easily pronounced, obviously male, and no weird spelling. Not so common he would run into namesakes everywhere, but not so uncommon that he couldn't find a keychain with it on. Your name is your first impression. It makes it harder to get jobs or be taken seriously. This is your moniker and in the end your choice. I reflect on my childhood. Had a kid on grade school named Courtney. If you don't think that he was made fun of and beat up, then you'd be wrong. His saving grace was being faster and after a while stronger than his tormentors. His name isn't Courtney anymore either, since he changed it as soon as possible. So, not the idiot. Parents need to realize that kids are cruel. Something unique and new may seem cool, but they need to think, will this get my kid beat up every day? Not the idiot. I also was gifted with a creatively spelled name. Let's say I am a female named Stephen, spelled Stefan, pronounced Steven. See, it doesn't even make any sense. My mother swears she saw it in a magazine years ago and loved it. I hate it. I say, how do you know you are even pronouncing it right? She is not well educated and she says, well, it makes sense to pronounce it that way, so that's my name. And it's awful. I haven't changed it for reasons, but I wish I had. I've always hated it. I, 26, moved to the opposite side of the world in 2016. I always had complicated feelings about my family, so not seeing them anymore was a secret bonus, not gonna lie. Have only been home since once, and it was very stressful. I'm trying to hold casual contact with my divorced parents, but I'm trying to cut out my sisters, 29 and 23, bit by bit, because they are too intrusive, and opposed to my parents, I don't feel indebted to them one bit. Anyway, last year my dad turned 50, big party. I transferred some money to my older sister who kind of organized the whole thing and told me they'll do some sort of shared present with the whole family. I asked what, and she said something about a motorbike. I said cool, no more info needed. Fast forward to the party, she calls me at midnight, daytime here, still in bed, via video call and holds my partner's unsuspecting, sleepy, half-dressed faces into a room of 60 people who I barely know and hands the phone around. Then the moment of surprise comes and voila, a money bag designated for a trip to my country lasting 3 weeks. A trip that conveniently falls right in the middle of my partner's and my 2 months long, already planned out, low-budget road and camping trip at the end of this year. For my dad, who's a tad posh and deadly afraid of flying on his own. Without ever so much as mentioning it to me beforehand. My partner and I, barely awake from going out the night before, just sat there not knowing what to say. My dad was very thankful and touched. In the coming weeks, my dad spent all that money on his gardener. I hoped he'd forget about the original purpose of the money. I offered alternatives, but he insisted on sticking to the plan, I think a little bit due to expectations from everyone and his set time off from work. So I replanned our whole trip, much to my partner's and my annoyance, because we will basically have to rush through great parts of the trip now. I made sure not to show that to my dad, though, because it's not his fault and he feels easily rejected. I booked the flights and accommodations. The option of building a structure for the car to sleep in fell through because my dad needs to sit there now. We would have slept in a tent, but now bed and breakfasts it is. Anyway, I got over it, everything is booked. Then I spoke to my older sister, whose idea that whole present was, and she tells me that she's trying to get a girlfriend for my dad, so he doesn't have to fly alone. Much to my dismay, she was successful. So again, all accommodations cancelled and booked again for 4 people. Great. So far I had to pay $5,000 for everything, and my dad keeps putting off paying me the $4,000 he owes me, so that's that. Bloody gardener. I'm so mad at my sister for putting us into this situation, but everyone just pats her on the shoulder for being such a great freaking person for reuniting my dad and me when I never even wanted it. Am I the heartless idiot here? Everyone's the idiot here. Your sister shouldn't have planned a trip that would inconvenience you without asking first, but you also shouldn't have handed over a large sum of money to your sister without agreeing what it was to be spent on first, and you shouldn't have then replanned your whole trip, booked the flights and accommodations, and then rebooked them to accommodate a new girlfriend. Your sister was in the wrong, but you have to take some responsibility for this too, for going along with it all and paying large sums of money without complaint. Everyone's the idiot here. Stop being a pushover and then just complaining about it. Learn to set boundaries with your sister so next time you will not be in this situation. Decide what you can afford and agree to that only. If she tries to add anything else to cost you money, remind her about what you agreed to and that if she wants anything else added she will need to pay for it. Your sister is also wrong for not getting your full agreement with the dates and details of the trip. I am split here. Sounds like you need to grow a spine honestly. You're unhappy with your family, your sisters, them ruining your trip, but you just don't say anything about it. Why couldn't you have just said you're not available when they planned for, can he come another time? If you just spoke up and voiced your concerns you wouldn't be out of pocket or inconvenienced. Would it really have been here to say sorry, me and my partner have a trip booked in the time you were supposed to visit, can we rearrange? So I am in grad school, and so far it's been online, so I can do it from wherever. However, next month it becomes an internship that I have to be physically present for. Therefore, I'll be moving to another state to be there for my internship. I work in a small office with about 4 people and my boss. 2 of the other people who are the same position as me have given their 2-week notices recently. When I found this out I decided I would tell my boss 3 weeks in advance that I was going to be leaving also, so she would have a longer time to prepare or hire someone new. However, when I broke her the news she got extremely upset. She told me I was a waste over and over. She told me my flexibility screwed because I was in a strenuous grad school program and I would never make it my field, no one would ever hire me. This isn't fair at all because I would work as much as I could given my workload. I would even work 6 a.m. till 9 a.m. shifts on days where I had exams or big projects I needed to complete that day. My boss also accused me of having a crush on one of my coworkers who is also leaving, and that's the only reason I was leaving. By the time she done saying all this to me, I was crying and I had to excuse myself from the room. When I went back to get my bag as my shift was over she tried playfully saying you're not mad at me right over and over again in front of my coworkers who had just witnessed everything she said to me. I don't feel comfortable returning at all now because of what she said to me. Would I be an idiot if I went to HR about this incident and never went back to finish out my final 3 weeks? Not the idiot. That was toxic and truly disgusting behavior. Go to HR. That is the whole reason they are even there. Additional note, and I would like to say this delicately, you need to do some serious soul searching and ask yourself why on earth you feel guilty for defending yourself against verbal abuse. Feeling bad about being verbally abused is normal. What is not normal is feeling guilty for going to HR because you feel badly about the verbal abuse, and this is essentially your issue. Not the idiot. When you're in a supervisor or management or boss position, there's a level of professionalism expected of you from people below and above in rank. Even though people above you have different expectations than the people below you, both will expect you to act professionally. She shouldn't be in any position where she manages or oversees anyone whatsoever, since it's clear that she can't admit when she screws up. Nor can she properly make up for her misdoing in any mature way. Not the idiot. And don't listen to her. I worked in an environment that was verbally abusive to their workers, I don't say that lightly. When I quit, they did this to me in an attempt to get me to stay. I was called worthless at least once a week, but it got much more personal when I quit. When they saw that berating me wasn't going to change my mind, they started telling me how my supervisors thought I was a great worker and offered me a promotion. I politely told them there was nothing they could do to get me to stay. I'm 27 and my husband is 30. We tried for a few years to have baby, long story short, it didn't work out and we ended up going through a couple rounds of in vitro fertilization. Fast forward. We find out we're pregnant and we are super happy, like over the moon ecstatic. We couldn't wait for the 12-week mark to tell people and started working on a nursery right away. However, we go to our scan and find out we are having 4 babies. 4. That's insane. I'm cutting a lot of backstory out because honestly, it's hard for me to talk about. At the time, my husband and I are just in shock, but happy we have healthy babies. Now, I'm a small woman, 5.0 and very petite. At my next scan, it was suggested I consider aborting 2 of the pregnancies for the sake of my body, and to be honest, I was quietly considering bringing this idea up to my husband anyway because of the money involved with raising 4 children. We could afford 2 babies, but no way could we afford 4. Me and my husband are distraught that this is our reality, but we went home and tried to figure it out. From our latest scan, we know we have identical twin girls and 2 fraternal boys in there. If we go through with a selective abortion, which we most likely will, I brought up that I would like to keep the 2 girls as they are identical twins. I'm hoping they have the twin bond, and also, to be honest, I've always wanted girls. My husband is on board with this, but as soon as I told my mother and sister the scenario, they kicked off, calling us selfish, entitled, saying we are searching for designer babies, etc. The way I see it is that we have to make a choice which babies go if we do this, and it breaks our hearts that we are in this position, but we need to do what we can for the sake of our children. This story sounds so tragic, like a soap storyline or something, but it's honestly the hardest thing I have ever done. So, my question is both, am I the idiot for having a preference in this? I'm a triplet, and my mom became pregnant with us through in vitro fertilization and actually had 5 eggs, and this makes me wonder, did she do the same thing and selectively choose 3 and abort the others? They always jokingly said I ate the other 2 cause I was the largest out of the 3. If I found out my mother aborted the others by chance, it'd kind of give me a new perspective on life. And if I found out she aborted them by choice, I'd feel honored, but would also wonder what my other siblings would be like. Honestly, I'd suggest lying and say the other 2 didn't make it. Not the idiot except your mom and sister. But you probably should stop discussing it with anyone but husband and your doctors. You are going to be judged harshly for this. In your situation, I would prefer girl babies over boys, mainly because that is all I know. I don't blame you no matter what you select. That said, I would select the ones that are most likely to survive to the end of the pregnancy and not have any implications from the reduction. If the boys seem healthier and on track growth-wise, I would pick them. I'd likely leave it up to the doctor's discretion. Not the idiot. Stop telling people. This is not a matter for your mother. This is not a matter for your sister. This is nobody's business but your own. Personally, I am against abortion, but that's not what this is about. This is about your personal issues. You have made your decisions. The embryos have stopped growing. The 2 boys stopped growing. That's it. As others have said. If you tell anyone, they will without a doubt find a way to tell your daughters you get rid of their brothers because you wanted 2 girls instead.